All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh. I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah, who the world calls Christ. It's your brother Yaiquab, HOIGA, back at you with another quick chop, letting you know what's going on today in captivity. And today we're going to talk a little bit about this holiday season known as Christmas. What Christmas really is about, and why we shouldn't be partaking in such events. All right. So I found this article. Anybody can look this up. This is not secret or hidden information. You can look this up anywhere. All right. The Babylonian origins of Christmas traditions. And I'm not going to read all of it, just a little bit, a few key points. There's a strong correlation between ancient Babylonian mythology and the Abrahamic religions followed by billions today, and many of our traditional Christmas customs stem from Babylon, or stem from Babylonian practices of Princess Enigaldi's time. So let's find out who Enigaldi is. Belshati Nana, or Belshati Nanar, named also Enigaldi Nana, was a Babylonian princess who flourished around 554 BCE. She was the daughter of Nabonidus, the last Neo-Babylonian king and ruler of the city of Ur, and sister of Belshazzar. She served as a high priestess in Ur. She was called the Priestess of Sin. So this custom stems all the way back to ancient Babylon. And who started it? This Priestess of Sin, known as Enigaldi. So that's what they're saying this goes back to. A little bit more. Nimrod, presented in the book of Genesis as a young mighty hunter before the Lord, was the original child worship figure and regarded as a protective leader during his lifetime in Babylon. So everybody knows that Nimrod is a descendant of Cush, and he was the first king that tried to unite all of the nations. Upon his death, he became the sun god, and his birth was celebrated around the time of the winter solstice with great revelry. So when he died, people worshipped him as if he was the god of the sun, or as if he was the sun. All right. Also known as Tammuz, and Tammuz is in direct reference to Nimrod. And also when you hear about the fake Jews, or talking about the Tammuz all the time, they don't believe in the Bible. They believe in the Tammuz, and the Tammuz is Babylonian customs, namely after Nimrod. The nativity of this sun god was conveyed in worship through carved figures placed in chambers to welcome the son of the sun, leading to the nativity manger scenes that still decorate churches and homes around the world at this time of year. So those nativity scenes you see with sweet white baby Jesus and Mother Mary and Joseph, where you got all the animals sitting around in this barn. You see that out in front of people's yards. You see them in front of some businesses. You definitely see them in front of churches. All of that goes back to Nimrod, and what that represents. That sweet white baby Jesus is supposed to be Nimrod being born. So it's the sun welcoming the sun. You see what I mean? So that's what that goes back to. The winter solstice was a time of great celebration in pagan tradition, as it marked the beginning of the sun's ascent and new life to come. Green foliage and trees were heralded as symbols of Nimrod, as they signified the rebirth of the sun. So those trees that people put in their houses, that is a symbol of Nimrod himself. Evergreen trees were decorated to honor Nimrod's eternal light. So they use those evergreen trees because they're year-round trees. Those evergreen trees, those are your pine trees. They last year-round, right? So they decorate those in honor of Nimrod. That's why it says his eternal light is because those trees are green year-round. And leaves and sprigs were formed into the shape of the sun, and from these practices stem the Christmas trees and wreaths we know and love to decorate so well. So those wreaths that people have on their front door, those are representative of the sun. All right. So you got the sun with the wreaths, and then you got the tree with the Nimrod, or that represents Nimrod. You see that? So it all goes back to Babylon. Let's get another article. Now this is from Wikibooks, ultimately Wikipedia. Anybody can look this up again. This is titled "The History of Christmas Practices." The counterfeit mystery religion of Babylon, which began with the worship of Ishtar, Isis, Astarte, Ashtaroth, Easter, who Ishtar is, she's the mother of Nimrod. All right. Found expression in many different forms in the different cultures of the world under many different names. But the essence of the false worship was the same. So many cultures celebrated this, or they still celebrate this under many different names, but ultimately it's the same. No different than Christmas today. It's the same. Goes right back to Nimrod and Ishtar. It was based on a substitute salvation and redemption message that used the gratification of man's natural five senses and their fleshly desires. You see that? Those fleshly desires, what are those? What is that? Sex. That's what it goes back to, ultimately. The sun and sex. Nimrod and his mother were the originators of this worship upon earth, because the legend goes Nimrod and his mother Ishtar had some kind of sexual relationship. You see what I mean? That's why it says fleshly desires. Let's read one more article. And this one's titled History of Christmas. All right, it's from the History Channel. Again, anybody can look this information up. There's many different sources. All of them, for the most part, are saying the same thing. We're going to start here. How did Christmas start? The middle of winter has long been a time of celebration around the world. Centuries before the arrival of the man called Jesus, early Europeans celebrated light and birth in the darkest days of winter. So we already know the white man loves darkness. All his major celebrations are always at night. You got Halloween is at night. You see what I mean? Christmas and New Year, the darkest time of the winter. You see what I mean? Or the darkest time of the year. New Year is literally the darkest time of year, but they're saying that that's a new year. But we know that the white man just loves darkness. He's from the caves. You know, he's lived in darkness his whole existence. You see what I mean? Many people rejoice during the winter solstice, when the worst of the winter was behind them, and they could look forward to longer days and extended hours of sunlight. All right. So that's how what we know today as Christmas, which is ultimately still the same thing. It's still Babylonian. It's still going back to those, that's the sun and sex. All right, we're going to read a little bit about it. Saturnalia. In Rome, where winters were not as harsh as those in the far north, Saturnalia, a holiday in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture, was celebrated. Beginning in the week leading up to the winter solstice and continuing for a full month. So the Europeans celebrated it for the full month. Saturnalia was a hedonistic time. What does hedonistic time mean? Is orgy time, it's party time, it's sex time. That's all that is. Right? Like we read in the last article, those fleshly desires, it goes back to sex. Sex in the sun. When food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down. For a month, enslaved people would become masters. Peasants were in command of the city. Businesses and schools were closed so that everyone could join in on the fun. So with peasants in control of the city and enslaved people will become the masters, what is that? That's BDSM, sadomasochism. That's all that is. The white man loves that. That's why you see all these rich white men like Harvey Weinstein and certain prominent white male figures, like in the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. He was a millionaire, money hand over fist. And what was he doing in one of the scenes? He went to a prostitute and she was stomping on him, trampling on him, shoving candles up his butt and all kind of stuff. You see what I mean? That's what this time of year was about, because that's what the white man loves. All right, let's get one more. When was Christmas canceled? In the early 17th century, a wave of religious reform changed the way Christmas was celebrated in Europe. When Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces took over England in 1645, they vowed to rid England of decadence, and as part of their effort, canceled Christmas. By popular demand, Charles II was restored to the throne, and with him came the return of the popular holidays. So at a time, a devil conquered Europe and canceled Christmas. They get this other devil, Charles II, got back in power, and he reinstated it. The Pilgrims, English separatists that came to America in 1620, were even more orthodox in their Puritan beliefs than Cromwell. So those separatists that came to America, they were even more radical than Cromwell. As a result, Christmas was not a holiday in America, so they didn't celebrate Christmas at all. From 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was actually outlawed in Boston. So in Boston, it was outlawed to celebrate Christmas. You see what I mean? So this is how radical they was about Christmas. They didn't celebrate Christmas at all. Anyone exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. They was actually handing out fines. If you charging, you talking about happy holidays, they fining you for it. You see what I mean? By contrast, in the Jamestown settlement, Captain John Smith reported that Christmas was enjoyed by all and passed without incident. After the American Revolution, English customs fell out of favor, including Christmas. In fact, Christmas wasn't declared a federal holiday until June 26. So for about 200 years, this was not even a federal holiday. In fact, the better part of the beginning of their settlement here, for about the first 200 years, they didn't celebrate Christmas at all. You see what I mean? But ultimately, this goes back to sex and sun worship. That's what Christmas was about. That's why the Puritans didn't celebrate it. That's why it was outlawed for a time, because this is what it goes back to, right? And we shouldn't be celebrating it because our God told us not to celebrate it. And let's read a little bit about it. Let's get a few scriptures on that. I'm going to start at the classic Jeremiah 10, where this isn't actually talking about actual Christmas as we know it now, the name Christmas. This is actually going into the Babylonian customs that we read about earlier, which is ultimately the worship of the sun and Nimrod, right? But it's the same, like they said in the article. You can call it whatever you want. It's the same traditions. It's the same pagan practices, right? So Jeremiah 10:1. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. House of Israel, you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Verse 2. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. You see that? So it's saying, be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Why are we not to be dismayed at the signs of heaven? Let's find out. We're going to get Genesis 1, and we're going to read start at verse 14. And it reads, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So these lights that the Most High created for us in the firmament were for signs, seasons, days, and years. And verse 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. Verse 16. And God had made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So these lights that we see up in the firmament, those are for signs and for seasons and for days. The Most High often gave us messages through those stars. He gave us certain signs. You see what I mean? He gave us certain warnings, so on and so forth, told us what time of year it is, told us when we're supposed to celebrate our feast days. It was all predicated upon this sign. Or these hosts of heaven. But we weren't to worship them because we actually worship the one that created these signs. You see what I'm saying? It's actually a law against us worshiping these hosts of heaven. We're going to read that real quick. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, verse 19. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them. and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. So we're not supposed to worship the Most High gave the sun, moon, and stars. He gave that to the heathen. He doesn't care, you know what I mean? If the heathen worship that, you're not to worship that. We understand that these are signs and for seasons. You see what I mean? And we worship the ultimate God that created those signs and seasons. So that's why we're not supposed to worship them. That's why it says, don't be dismayed. Back in Jeremiah. Verse 3, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the workman of the hands of the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. So it's saying that the custom that we doing, this whole Christmas holiday, is vain, it's useless, it's pointless. You see what I mean? Verse 4, they deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. So right there, it's saying they deck it with silver and gold. We read that they would get these evergreen trees, or those palm trees, and they would decorate it in honor of Nimrod. That's what the people are doing. That's why he's calling it vain. And he's telling us that we should not be doing this. Let's get a precept to that. Let's get a Sirach. And we want 30 and 19. What good doeth the offering unto an idol? What's the point of it? It's vain. It's useless. It's pointless. For neither can it eat nor smell. It can't eat. It can't smell. It can't walk. It can't run. It can't even think. It can't do anything. So is he that is persecuted of the Lord. You see what I'm saying? So there's no point in that. Right? Back to Jeremiah. Verse 5. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. We just read that in Sirach. They don't eat, they don't speak. You see what I mean? They must needs be born. They can't move. You got to carry them every goddamn where, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. This is why the custom of the people are vain, because this idol that they're worshiping, which is Nimrod in the sun, it can't move, it can't see, it can't eat, smell, walk, run. You got to carry it everywhere. It's useless. It's vain. You see what I'm saying? And, you know, we got some of our people, you tell them that, you know, we show them Christmas in the Bible and why we shouldn't do it. Well, I don't do it. I'm just doing it for the kids. You see what I'm saying? So you don't do it, but you're going to lie to your kids and do it. And there's a law against that too. We're going to get that in Leviticus, the 18th chapter. In verse 21, and it reads, and thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech. This is talking about sacrificing your kids. You see what I'm saying? So when you letting your kids celebrate it, well, I don't do it, I'm just doing it for the kids, that's you sacrificing your kids unto Nimrod. Even though you're not, you know, physically sacrificing your kids to Nimrod or to Molech or whatever idol is being worshipped at that time, you're spiritually doing that. You see what I'm saying? And you're causing your kids to go off. You see? Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. You see that? So even if you saying it, well, it's just for the kids, that's still unlawful. You know what I mean? You passing your kids through that fire. You know what I mean? Even when, you know, when it comes down to the food of that day, you're not supposed to partake in that either. You ain't supposed to eat the leftovers. You know, when Big Mama call you up, tell you come get some of this Christmas dinner, you ain't supposed to do that either. You know what I mean? There's a law against that. I'm going to read it. Exodus 34. And we're going to start at verse, what do I want? Oh, right here. Exodus 34 and 12. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. So it's saying beware, unless you're gonna make a deal with the inhabitants of the land. You want to be like the white man, you want to live the American dream, you want to follow after all of their celebrations and folly days, it's going to be a trap for you. Verse 13. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. So ultimately, don't take no part of that. That's what we're supposed to do. You see what I mean? Just because we got to stay here don't mean we have to be like them. Because it will be for a snare or a trap unto us. Verse 14. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. So when you partake in these Thanksgiving and especially Christmas, that's definitely going into idol worship, because it's the Babylonian custom that goes back to Nimrod and Ishtar. Verse 15. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, I'm going to be like them, and they go a whoring after their gods. I'm going to celebrate Christmas and do sacrifice unto their gods. I'm going to buy them gifts, put them under the tree. I'm going to decorate Nimrod up, that tree, put a wreath on my door. And one call thee, Big Mama call you, hey, you want something to eat? It's Christmas. Happy holidays. And thou shalt, and thou eat of his sacrifice. You see that? You can't even eat the food. You can't even eat the leftovers from the day before. You can't do that because it was already sacrificed, unto idols. And the most, and Yahushua, he hates that. Let's get that in Revelation. Revelation 2 and 14. And it reads, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. You see that? So even Yahushua, he can't stand it. You ain't supposed to eat things sacrificed unto idols, because it's a stumbling block, and you will be destroyed for that. You see what I mean? Let's get one final scripture. We're going to give an example of what happens when you eat things sacrificed unto idols. Number 25, start at verse 1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their God. And the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. You see that? So we went after Buddha, or whoever Moab was worshiping at that time. They called us to eat things sacrificed unto idols. Here, come celebrate this, whatever Buddha day is, or whatever they do, or whatever. Eat this, knowing that it was sacrificed unto their God. And the people, the children of Israel, ate it anyway, bowed down and ate it. You see what I mean? And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. You see that? The Most High was mad. He said, oh yeah, I just told y'all don't be going after other guys. And what do? You over here bowing down to this fat Buddha statue. You eating fried rice or whatever they offer up to that fat statue. I just told you. Hey, Moses, man, go get him and hang him. I want to see him. You see what I mean? That's what's happening right now. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye everyone his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. So the Most High God had Moses kill everybody that went eating food sacrificed unto idols. You see what I'm saying? So no, you can't eat that leftover Christmas dinner. You can't do that either. All right. So with that, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh. Do so in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. Again, my name is Jaquab. Say no to Christmas. Come back to your law, statutes, commandments. And with that, I say shalom.